20th, one day after Juneteenth, and we celebrated. We were very festive yesterday, commemorating the final slaves that were actually freed, or after they received the announcement that they were free down in Galveston, Texas, and we certainly celebrated in a massive way. And today we are really excited to continue our conversation in this town hall meeting with Brother Lawrence Hamm, and he's going to come on and he's going to share, a voluminous amount of information. We want to talk about a couple of things tonight. We want to talk about police brutality. We want to talk about the Justice Monday's protest, and then also the march in Trenton. And then there's other points that we want to bring up. But without any further ado, I want to introduce somebody that I come to know and respect in a strong way. And one of the reasons why I really respect him is because he is a person of direct action. He is a person that believes in fighting, and he is one that will get out in the middle and fight for those values that we hold so dear. Thomas Paine made the comment that if things are going to change, we have the ability to start over again, to re-begin ourselves over again. And this is the time where we need a person of great stature and the know-how. It's one thing to be able to talk, but it's another thing to be able to get it done. And Brother Lawrence Hamm knows how to get it done. So I introduce to you now, Brother Lawrence Hamm.
Thank you, Reverend Simmons, and good evening, everybody. Hello to our producer, Nikki, and I guess Dave is helping too. I didn't see Dave, but I'm just going to presume that Dave is helping out, and it's good to be with everybody this evening. Reverend Alan Simmons, our host, opened up tonight talking about Juneteenth. And let me just recap. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about Juneteenth, and perhaps many of you heard about it for the first time. But Juneteenth has been around quite a while. In fact, probably for over 50 years, it's been observed in Texas and in the Southwest, because it was in June 19th of 1865, that General Granger of the Union Army rode into Galveston, Texas, and announced that all the enslaved African people there were free. They were among the last to hear about it, even with the Civil War, because many people don't know Texas was a slave-holding state. And as you know, Texas is out there in the West, so it took a while for the word to get out to our people there in Texas that slavery had nominally been abolished. Now, officially, slavery did not end in the United States until the passage of the 13th Amendment, and that was in December of 1865. And that's an important point to remember. However, people grasp onto occasions that they can relate to, and the people of Texas really embraced, in a ceremonial way, the historical announcement of the end of slavery in their state. And so they made a ceremonial holiday at first, and then I believe it may be an official holiday. It's observed as a ceremonial holiday in 47. It is a paid holiday in several states, and there was just an announcement by Mayor de Blasio in New York City that New York City is planning to make Juneteenth a paid holiday. So this is a very important observance. As I said, it was popular in the South, and it has become more popular throughout the United States. And so many people across the metropolitan area were having Juneteenth observances. In fact, in the state of New Jersey, there were probably more Juneteenth observances yesterday and today than I can ever remember at one time. And so I urge people to read up on Juneteenth. You know, Texas had a very interesting history, if people don't know, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that here. I will just refer you to A People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, and look up the sections on Texas. Texas was once part of Mexico, and Texas separated from Mexico because in Mexico they had a revolution and they proclaimed their independence. And one aspect of the Mexican Revolution and Mexican struggle for independence was that Mexico abolished slavery before the United States did. But white slaveholders in Texas did not want to abolish slavery. And so one of the reasons that Texas broke away from Mexico, and remember, Texas had declared itself as an independent republic. Texas had proclaimed itself as an independent republic so that it could, in fact, preserve slavery. And another discussion that we'll have after the election is the fact that what we're saying about Texas today, in many ways, excuse me, I'm sorry. I lost my connection here. Am I back? Am I back?
Yes, you're back.
Yes,
we can hear you,
here.
Larry.
You're good.
Thank you. Thank you. Texas, as I said, Texas broke away and declared itself an independent republic so that it could preserve slavery. And there is a narrative now that although we learned about the Boston Tea Party and no taxation without representation, there is a rising interpretation of the American Revolution that in the same way that Texas broke away to preserve slavery, the American Revolution was fought to preserve slavery in the American colonies because Great Britain had declared an end to the international slave trade. And that's a discussion, but I would refer you to works by Dr. Gerald Horne, one of his books in which he discusses the relationship between the American Revolution and the preservation of slavery is The Counter-Revolution of 1776. So, and Dr. Horne has written a number of very good books. So Texas had declared itself a republic and it had aligned itself with the South because it wanted to preserve slavery. I had gone out to Texas on several occasions and I visited the Alamo, and Reverend Simmons, you know, I was somewhat a little depressed because all of those heroes that I had as a child watching, what was it called? The Walt Disney Hour that used to be on TV, and they had programs like Jim Bowie and Davy Crockett, and these guys had fought in the Alamo. But no one told me that the Alamo was all about preserving slavery, that at the root, you know, why they were rebelling in Texas against Mexico was because they wanted to preserve slavery. So again, I urge people to dig deep and study history, learn about the history of Juneteenth. And let me take this occasion while we're talking about Juneteenth to just say that even before becoming a US Senate candidate, in fact, decades before, almost 5 decades before becoming a US Senate candidate, I was in favor, in support of reparations for the descendants of African people that were enslaved in this country. And I will, as a US Senator, support the HR 40 reparations bill, but I promise you this, that I will introduce and sponsor a bill not only to study the problem of reparations, but in fact, to provide restitution for those who are African Americans, who are the descendants of those who were enslaved here in the United States. So Reverend Simmons, what else are we going to talk about tonight?
Larry, thank you so much, man. That was a perfect segue into the next conversation, which is the backdrop of all of this. You know, after after every strong progressive move, there's always a backlash, or it seems like there's a white lash that tries to come back to undermine the attempts moving forward. And I believe that at this point in time, there is a shift that has exacerbated itself off of the police brutality that we've seen in recent days. And so let's talk about police brutality. One of the things I did recognize that you stated very clearly is that there is a way that we can end police brutality. Can you please talk toward that?
Well, first and foremost, the greatest antidote to police brutality is organized and mobilized citizens to stop police brutality. And I just want to give a shout out to the young people I was with today in Springfield, New Jersey. They had a unity rally in Springfield. Many young people, in fact, it was almost all young people out there today at the unity rally. And they had this unity rally in response to the murder of George Floyd. And they had this unity rally to highlight the young people's experiences with racism. And they invited me out to their rally today, and I went out. I was the last speaker at their rally today. And actually, I was glad to be the last speaker because this gave the young people a chance to, it was their rally and it was their chance to make their voices heard. So I said a few words at the end. So I want to give a shout out to the young people at the Unity Rally in Springfield today. Also want to give a shout out, Reverend Simmons, to the Patterson family that you know very well. And I also discussed the issue of police brutality at an event that they had at their home yesterday. And it was a wonderful event. For a brief moment, I felt like I wasn't even on the planet Earth anymore. Everything was so nice. They had prepared for us in their beautiful home up, I believe that was it in West Orange or South Orange? South Orange.
South Orange, right.
South Orange, New Jersey. Wonderful family, and they brought a lot of their friends and neighbors out. And we had a very serious discussion about police brutality and other issues. So one of the things I want to say, in line with my first position, that the best antidote is people organized and mobilized against police brutality. I want to mention to people that on Monday, the People's Organization for Progress will have its weekly Justice Monday protest against police brutality. That will be this Monday, June the 22nd, 4:00 p.m. at the Federal Building in Newark, New Jersey. And it's the Rodino Federal Building. The address is 970 Broad Street in Newark, New Jersey. And that is the corner of Broad Street and Walnut Streets in Newark. It's very easy to get to. It's one block down from City Hall in Newark, New Jersey. And we want everybody to come out at 4 p.m. But more importantly, in this fight against police brutality, we are taking our protest to Trenton, Reverend Simmons, the capital of New Jersey.
Yes.
For Tuesday, June 30th. Tuesday, June 30th, 11 a.m., we're going to have a rally on the steps of the State House Annex, 131 West State Street in Trenton, New Jersey. And we want everybody to come out and join us. All the groups that have organized marches and rallies to demand justice for George Floyd and an end to police brutality and an end to racism. We want you to come and join us in Trenton on Tuesday, June the 30th, 11 a.m. at the State House Annex, 131 West State Street. The State House Annex is the building right next to the State House, but we're not rallying at the State House because the State House is under reconstruction. They literally are rebuilding the State House. They haven't torn down the old State House, but they're refurbishing and remodeling, rehabilitating the old State House there on West State Street. So everybody, please come and join us in Trenton on Tuesday. Later on in this program, Reverend Simmons, I hope we'll give a little time to let people send us messages about protests that they have had in their towns, in their cities and villages since our last broadcast. So if you were with us, I believe our last broadcast was 2 weeks ago. So if you have had an action in the last 2 weeks, send us a message, type it in, and Nikki will read it out before we get to the end of the program. And you know, you can give us a in-depth message if you want to say something in depth about the action that you had in your town. Reverend Simmons.
Thank you so much, Larry. If you could, can you go over the bullet points that you listed the other day, or yesterday, if I should, regarding police brutality? One of the things I do know is that a lot of people have the idea that it needs to stop, but they really don't know how it can stop. And they're suggesting some of these wayward ideas that really does not have any teeth. But what would be some of your recommendations in terms of ending police brutality?
Well, first of all, I want to say that I support all the reform efforts. I don't want to be misunderstood because people say, well, Larry Hamm doesn't support us. No, I support all the reform efforts that people have that people are proposing to fight police brutality. For instance, we support body cams. We think that's good. We support de-escalation training. We support bias training. We support transparent police records so that if municipalities are hiring police, they can, in fact, see their records from their previous employment as officers in other towns. So we support, my general position toward all of the reforms that people have talked about is one of support. However, as an activist, I feel it is my responsibility to also let people know that those things won't stop police brutality. They can have a positive effect on the officer's behavior, and maybe, you know, there will be some officers in general that, in fact, their training that they had, their anti-bias training or their de-escalation training might in fact help them, you know, to, or prevent them from doing something like an act of police brutality or murdering an unarmed civilian. But we have had anti-bias training. We have had de-escalation training. We have had body cams. We have hired in certain municipalities, we have hired minority officers and women officers. And we have promoted minority officers and women officers into supervisory ranks. And we see that police brutality continues. So it's obvious that we must do stronger things to stop police brutality. For instance, I had said earlier, I had mentioned one of the reforms that people demanded, and we support this demand. In fact, tonight I want to go on record publicly and say that all police forces in the state of New Jersey, all police forces in the country should have body cameras. But Reverend Simmons, you know what we have to have with the body camera? We have to have laws that say that if police turn off their body cameras while they're committing a suspected act of police brutality or violation of constitutional rights or unjust murder of a civilian, they will be prosecuted for doing so. Because until the officers understand that they really have something to lose, then they will begin to change their behavior. When you saw the way that Chauvin looked when he had his knee on the neck of George Floyd, he looked like he had no concern for humanity whatsoever. In fact, he actually didn't look like a person that was really worried about losing their job or losing anything. Police brutality will stop when we make it clear to officers that if they engage in police brutality, if they murder unarmed civilians, if they violate people's constitutional rights, if they engage in a racialized profiling or racialized policing for that matter, that they're going to lose things, like they're going to lose their job, they're going to lose their badge, they're going to lose their gun, they're going to lose their license, they're going to lose their seniority, they're going to lose their pension, and if prosecuted and convicted, they will lose their freedom. So we have to put laws in place to deal with that. One such law would be to eliminate or change qualified immunity for police officers. Chauvin knew, and many officers know, that 99% of police brutality cases in the United States do not end in the conviction of a police officer. 99% of them do not end in a conviction. And one of the reasons that they don't end in a conviction is because of this qualified immunity, this certain type of immunity that police officers have. We must reduce that immunity or eliminate that immunity so that when they go before the bar of justice, they will receive the same justice that we would receive if we murdered or hurt someone. I recall the case of Earl Faison. That was the only case probably in the history of New Jersey where 5 officers were convicted in connection with the murder of Earl Faison by these officers. But you know what? They were not convicted of murder. They were convicted of civil rights violations and of conspiracy. The civil rights violations were related to the torture that they put Mr. Faison under, and the conspiracy was related to the lies that they told about what happened to Mr. Faison. So we must deal with the issue of qualified immunity. The Supreme Court, just the day before yesterday, and this is why it's so important to vote, and this is why we have to have the right kind of president in the White House, because Trump has appointed these arch conservative justices. And yesterday, the justices refused to hear 8 cases on qualified immunity involving the police, which means that the laws currently on the books with regard to this qualified immunity will in fact stay in place.
Brother Larry, let me ask you this question for our viewers. What steps could we take now, individuals that are home, that listen in and they suggest activity, how would you suggest they move forward in terms of trying to curtail or reduce the presence of police brutality?
Well, the first thing is that they should come to the Justice Monday protests on Monday. Monday at 4 o'clock at the Rodino Federal Building, 970 Broad Street in Newark, New Jersey. Everybody come out for the Justice Monday protest. What we really like to do is get a different organization to bring its members out each Monday. So last week, I want to commend the school nurses who joined us for the Justice Monday protest. They're all part of the NTA, the Newark Teachers Association, but a group of school nurses, I guess it might have been about 20 of them, joined the picket line with us last Monday. They made last Monday their Justice Monday protest. So what we need is another organization to take this Monday and then another organization to take the Monday after that, so that each Monday we have a different organization or a church or a synagogue or a mosque or a union, any type of collective grouping of people to come and just join us on Justice Monday. The other thing is that, as I told the young people today, it may take as long as 6 months before the trial for Officer Chauvin even begins. Then that trial could take 6 more months before the jury renders a verdict. What I said to the young people today in Springfield is that they have to develop a plan, a strategy, and tactics for sustaining their protests over the next 12 months. I told them, If they only had the capacity to do one protest a month, then that's good. Do one a month, because 6 and 6 is 12. That would be 12 protests over the course of a year. They've kept the pressure on. Some groups have more resources and people. They can do it on a weekly basis. And there may even be some groups like the People's Organization for Progress that can do stuff on a daily basis. The point I'm trying to make is this. It would be better to do one protest a month over the next 12 months than to try and do 30 protests in a month and then burn everybody out, and then people don't want to protest no more. We have to keep the pressure on during this entire fight for justice until the officers who killed George Floyd are in jail. That's how we have to roll. We have to keep the pressure on. We have to have sustained protests, but we have to have a plan that is that can accommodate the different levels of commitment that people have, and that can meet people where they are, so to speak. I'm not talking about meet them in a location, but meet them psychologically where they are, and get them to engage in ongoing action, even if that action is just once a month. We need people to sustain these protests. The other thing people should do, they should contact their town council and say, we want chokeholds and strangleholds banned, outlawed for our police force. That's something that every municipality can do. That's a simple thing, right? Now, many departments already have rules against the use of a chokehold. But if officers break those departmental rules, they are not prosecuted. What we must do is outlaw the chokeholds and the strangleholds that killed people like George Floyd.
That was a really good comment that you made, Larry. And I certainly would implore, and to our viewers, implore is a pretty little word for beg.
Mm-hmm.
I beg of you, please,
Mm-hmm.
please understand this, that we are in this for the long haul, and we all have to build that win, that endurance, to take the fight all the way through to the end.
That's right.
The essence of power is organized people and organized money. So we have to be able to organize people, and we have to organize money over a sustained period of time.
That's right.
And Brother Larry, that brings us up to our next talking point. We want to talk about ways in which we could continue to build our coffers financially so that we can endure and carry this process out for the long haul. So fundraising. What are ways that we can begin the fundraising process even the more?
And you talking about fundraising for our campaign, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. Yes. Fundraising for the campaign. And I mentioned Justice Mondays. Let me mention one more time. We want everybody to join us in Trenton, Tuesday, June 30th. That's not this Tuesday. It's Tuesday after next. Tuesday, June 30th, 11 a.m. at the State House Annex, 131 West State Street in Trenton, New Jersey, the state capital. We're taking our protests to the state capital, Trenton, New Jersey. And the other point I want to make tonight in connection with what Reverend Simmons just raised is that we have a movement against police brutality, but it will help our movement if we can project our movement against police brutality into the electoral arena. We need people in office who are not afraid to stand up to the FOP and the PBA, and who in fact will not take donations from police organizations, because when you take those donations from police organizations, it makes it very hard to criticize the police and to pass legislation that would stop police brutality. So we need to elect people with integrity, elect people from our own ranks, elect people from our own communities, elect people from the working class and the middle class, and even from amongst poor people, to be members of Congress, because right now Congress is a club of millionaires. The House, a majority of its members have net worth above $1 million, and most of the men in the United States Senate are millionaires. How can we expect millionaires to legislate in our best interest, above and beyond throwing us a few crumbs every now and then? We need people from our own ranks who are as enraged about the murder, the lynching of George Floyd as we are. And that is why I'm running for the United States Senate, so that I can take our fight against police brutality onto the floor of the US Senate. And I mean, take it in there with the same fury and outrage that we have when we are marching in the streets. We have to go to Washington and shake things up, brothers and sisters. This is why we should not send or resend a conventional politician to represent us. In these extraordinary times, we need activists in elected office. We need people who have dedicated their lives to fighting for the grassroots community to be in elected office, so they can in fact represent us the way we want to be represented, and go down there and shake things up. If you have a go along, get along congressman, either in the House of Representatives or in the US Senate, if you have a go along, get along congressman that's not shaking things up, then that person is really not serving our interests in the best possible way. We need someone that's going to go in there like Jesus went into the temple and turn over the tables of the money changers. That's right. Turn over those tables and let them know, you know, that things are going to be shaken up, and it's not going to be business as usual. In fact, there's a new sheriff in town. You know, people like the way Bernie Sanders was fighting. Well, we need more Bernie Sanders in the United States Senate. And that's why I'm running. I'm trying to take our fight, not just the fight against police brutality, our fight for Medicare for all, our fight to abolish student debt, our fight to double the minimum wage, our fight to make the rich pay their fair taxes, our fight for a Green New Deal to end the existential threat of global warming. These are part of the platform that I'm running on. And to get elected, to get into the Senate, unfortunately, we still have a political system that requires money in order to win office. So I'm urging everyone tonight to please go to www.hamm4senate.org, www.hamm4senate.org. And as soon as you go to that website, when you click on the link to that website, it's going to open right up to the donations panel. And I hope that as many of you as possible will make a donation, give what you can, $1, $5, $25, $500, $1,000, whatever you can give will be greatly appreciated. But I'll say this, if all the people who are watching this broadcast tonight would donate just $100 one time, or one more time if you've already donated, we would have the money that we need to increase our paid political advertising so that we can win this election. People say, Larry Hamm, is your candidacy a symbolic one? And my answer to them is no, I am running to win. I believe that we can win, but I can't win unless I get the support I need from you. So if you want somebody in office that's going to march and protest, look, how many US senators have been on any marches and protests against police brutality? There's only one that I could name, and that's Bernie Sanders. The rest of them don't even go to protests. I mean, think of the 2 US senators from New Jersey. When was the last time you saw either of them on a picket line? So if you want a US Senator in the Senate that's going to speak out against police brutality, that's going to write bills to take away qualified immunity, to have a national standard on the use of force by police, to change the standard of proof for civil rights violations so that we can, in fact, get more convictions of crooked cops that engage in acts of police brutality and murder unarmed citizens unjustly. If you want that kind of person in the Senate, then go to www.hamforsenate.org and make a donation tonight, please. Reverend Simmons.
Thank you so much, Larry. Please go to that website. Please go to that website.
Do I have to do like James Brown and get down off my knees? Say, please, please, please. If that's what it'll take, I'll do it. I'll do it on this podcast, on this broadcast right now. If that's it, somebody type in and say, we want to see Larry do the James Brown imitation, please, please, please. If that's what it'll do to get you to donate $100, I'll do it. Go ahead, Ray.
$100 goes a long ways, and we have to look toward turning out the vote. You know, our last thing we want to talk to before we go to the air for questions is mailing in your ballots.
Yes.
And Brother Lawrence, if you could please talk a little bit about the mailing ballot part of this campaign.
Yes. This is our second vote by mail election. The first vote by mail election was in May for municipal offices and school board offices. This July 7th primary is the first primary that we've ever had that's been all vote by mail. Every registered voter on the books should have by now received their ballot. I just received my ballot this week. So you know when election day begins? Not July 7th. Election day begins when you open your ballot, pull it out, fill it out, fold it back up, put it back in the postage paid envelope and mail that envelope. That's your election day. Election day is tonight. If you open that ballot tonight, fill it out, put it back in the envelope, mail it in, today is election day. So you have from now, the 20th of today's the 20th, right? The 20th of June until July 7th to mail in your ballots. So please mail in your ballots, and I ask you, I beg you, I implore you, please vote for Larry Hamm for United States Senate and vote for the entire Not Me, Us team. Any candidate you see with the slogan, Not Me, Us, under their name, vote for those candidates, because all of those candidates are the candidates that will fight against police brutality in whatever office that they are elected to, and will do what is ever necessary, what they can do within their power, within the power of those offices, they will do it to try to end police brutality. So vote for the whole Not Me, Us line. That includes Bernie Sanders, who's Bernie 2020, Not Me, Us. There it is. There's Nikki holding up the ballot. That includes Bernie Sanders for president and his delegate. And Nikki, I saw you. Your name is on the ballot. You're a delegate for Bernie Sanders. Yes. Bernie Sanders for president. He's on the slogan Bernie 2020, Not Me, Us. Larry Hamm for United States Senator. And then we have a number of Not Me, Us congressional candidates. Let's see if I can name the Not Me, Us congressional candidates. That's Nina Spizakis. That's Hector Oseguera, and that's Russ Siricone. Russ Siricone. So vote for Russ, vote for Nina, and vote for Hector for Congress. And then we have about 15 different freeholder candidates running in 8 counties across the state. We also have 2 candidates running for mayor, and I want to give a shout out to the mayoral candidate in Atlantic City, Pamela Thomas Fields. I was in Atlantic City with her yesterday. And we were out by the boardwalk, and then we went into the hood. And I met a lot of wonderful people in Atlantic City, and I think we had a big impact by being down there. And I urge everyone who's from Atlantic City, who's watching this broadcast, to vote for Pamela Thomas Fields for mayor of Atlantic City. If you elect her, she will be the first Black woman mayor of Atlantic City. And we also have people running for town council. So all in all, if we count all the Bernie Sanders delegates, which are 84, we count all the other people who are running for offices, including myself for US Senate, our people running for Congress, freeholders, town council, and mayors. All of our candidates together are almost 150, not me, us candidates on ballots in all 21 counties across the state. And Nikki is holding up her back. What county is that for? What
This is Bergen County, District 9.
Bergen County, District 9. And you see the ballot there, and you see, I see Biden, I see the Biden column, and I see the Hamm column. And in the Hamm column is Hamm for US Senate, Spazakis for Congress, Kim, is that freeholders?
Yep, Danny Kim and Ed Fanning of Our Revolution.
Ed Fanning for freeholders. So we want you in Bergen County.
And then also out of any district, our candidate district,
yes,
for delegates has the most people who are either affiliated with your campaign or are running for office. So on this you have me. You also have Asada is on for also Roger, who's running for freeholder in Hudson County.
Yes, yes, great, wonderful.
And also Ricky is also on it too, who's a member of one of our volunteers. Just a few other things before you move on. Most important with your ballots, follow the directions.
Listen to what she's saying. Go ahead.
It's the directions. I see a lot of people making this mistake. Really important. Bubble this with black pen, not blue, not black. They use an automated system that, you know, if you remember filling out those Scantrons, if it cannot read it, your ballot is no good. They are trying to make it that ballots can get sent back in mistake if there are mistakes made, since 10% of the votes were sent back. They don't know if they're going to get the lawsuit through, but it follows a computerized system. So please make sure you use a black pen on your ballot. Black pen. Also, a lot of people think to take this off and detach it. Do not take this off. Do not.
Hold it up so people can see.
Yeah,
there you go.
If you notice there's these little perforated things.
There's a flap. There's a flap.
The flap. Do not detach.
Don't take that flap off.
Do not. Also, try when you're filling this out, make sure when you sign it, remember what the voter book looks like. A lot of times over time, your signature may change, but if it doesn't match close enough, they will discard your vote. There's rumors of this already happening. It shouldn't, because they're not supposed to be opening ballots, but make sure you follow the directions, which is also right here. I don't have the full mailer, but they do give you really detailed colored instructions, really easy to read. Also, make sure you put it in your envelope. Your envelope, make sure you write your name on it. It is postage paid. This one happens to be my father's ballot. That's why, not my name, but here, it's scannable, so they know he is registered. Unless you are if you are delivering this to the county yourself or dropping off the mail, do not fill out this flap. You are not a courier. You do not need to fill it out.
Right.
Some counties right now already do have drop-off boxes for your ballots. You can take them directly. I know Morris County has it. Essex County does. We'll make sure we get those addresses. I know Essex County has it. But most importantly, fill out this. Follow the rules. If not, they will throw out your vote.
Right. So make sure you fill out your ballot. Use a black pen. Fill in the ovals completely. Fold your ballot up. Put it in your postage paid envelope. Don't tear the flap off the ballot. Seal the envelope with the flap. And make sure you sign your ballot. Oh my goodness. If your ballot is not signed, it will not be counted.
And then
So you
also
must
make sure it
sure.
matches your signature. Try to remember what your signature looked like in the voter roll.
Right. That's right.
They are trying to, so a lot of these they're trying to return when the signature does not match, because
Right.
there are incidences where signatures do change over time. Sometimes those signatures are over 10 years old, so they don't match.
Right.
The other thing that's super important too is do not wait to the 7th to drop it off. Drop it off now.
Right.
Because even if you say if you drop it off at 5 o'clock on the 7th, it may not get the right postmark.
That's right. It must be postmarked July 7th. So if you mail it late on the 7th, it might not be postmarked July 7th, and then it won't be counted. The other thing is, don't tape your ballot shut. Taped ballots won't be counted.
Yep.
Seal it the way it's supposed to be sealed. Follow the directions. I know I was thrown off a little when I got my first ballot, like in May for the municipal elections. I was like, oh my God, all this paper was in there, right? It's the ballot and instructions and the envelope and it is. Don't let that throw you off. It's really very simple.
And if you haven't gotten your
you just fill your ballot out, fold it up, put it in an envelope, seal it properly the way it's supposed to be sealed, sign it, and don't tear the flap off.
And also, if you have not gotten your ballot yet, call the county clerk.
That's right.
I know Hudson County does have days to pick them up. I can't speak for any other county.
Yes.
I know I will be calling Bergen County to find out in the next day or two about it as well. If you need help, always contact the campaign. If you email info@hamforsenate.org, I will answer that email. We will get someone to help you with your ballot. If you message us on social media, I will answer, make sure we get someone to help you with your ballot. Even if you're not voting for Larry, we will help you. We think everybody's vote should count. We obviously would love for you to vote for Larry, but everyone has the right to vote and their vote should be counted. That being said, also do not vote on July 7th. We do not know if they're going to be counted, as they are a provisional ballot. So please, please mail your ballots in.
Right. Reverend Simmons.
Yes, sir. We are ready for the questions. I'm going to go ahead and shift and allow Nikki to go ahead with the questions. The first question, Nikki.
So our first question came in, not about any of the current protests, but I think it is relatable. You've talked about how you would raise people out of poverty. Can you elaborate more on your plan?
Right. Well, step one is that we need what Dr. King called in 1968 a guaranteed minimum income. What it is being called in 2020 is a universal basic income. Every citizen should be guaranteed an income that will be a floor that will keep them from falling into poverty. If we have a universal basic income and we implement that in an efficient and effective way, we can, within a generation, perhaps, eliminate poverty in our country. So I support 100% the universal basic income. The second thing we have to do is double the minimum wage. The current federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, and the state minimum wage is $8.35 an hour. You cannot make enough money to pay your rent. And if you are able to pay your rent, you don't have money left over to buy your food. So we must double the minimum wage for all minimum wage workers. And then we must move forward toward a living wage. Every person that works 40 hours a week should make enough money to support themselves, their families, and pay their bills. So, for instance, a living wage in Essex County would be about $33 an hour. And we need to move toward that for all working people in this country who are not yet up to the minimum wage level. Next question.
Awesome. Next question.
Hi. So this should have been our first question because it was the first question Booker got at the forum this past week.
Okay.
The first question, for people who did not turn in, the first question was asked if he would ever, Booker would ever debate Larry. So the first question is, now that Booker has said he will not debate you, can you give a public comment on your thoughts about this?
Well, I think it's unfortunate. It's most unfortunate. The voters of New Jersey, the Democratic voters of New Jersey, because he and I are running in the New Jersey Democratic primary, they deserve to hear a debate between the two leading candidates, or the two only candidates that are running for US Senate in the Democratic primary. The voters deserve that. A debate really flushes out the positions that candidates have on the issues. And it helps voters to contrast and compare and see the differences between the two candidates. So I think it is most unfortunate. First of all, it was unfortunate that the senator had agreed to debate. You know, we need to go back there, right? He had agreed to debate, he had agreed to a forum. It wasn't even a debate. The 100 Black women of Southern New Jersey were going to have a forum. At first, they invited the senator for a debate, but after discussions with staff, they agreed to a forum where I would come in, or he would come in first and do his presentation and leave, and then I would come in and do my presentation. He backed out of that. Not only did he back out of that, he planned an event at the same time that event was going to take place. Now, that event did take place, even though he didn't participate, because I showed up. And it essentially ended up being a forum with Larry Hamm. He later on returned to the following week to a forum that the 100 Black women of Southern Jersey had for a number of candidates. He participated in. It's very interesting. He was able to be in forums with other candidates running for other offices, but he wouldn't be in a forum with a candidate running against him for the same office. So I think that this is very unfortunate. It really robs the voters, the Democratic voters of New Jersey, of a real opportunity to see the differences in positions between Senator Booker and myself.
This question just came in on Twitter. What has been the hardest part of running for Senate?
Oh my God. The hardest part of running for Senate is raising money. That's the hardest part. I need to raise $100,000 in the next 2 weeks. I need to have a strong finish on the last week of this election. Now, I had put out this call to raise $100,000 just a few nights ago. I'm happy to report that over the past several days, we have raised $10,000 of that $100,000, which means we have $90,000 to go. The easiest way for me to get that $90,000 would be if 900 people would donate $100 each. If they did that, we would have more than enough resources to have a strong finish with our political advertising on the last week of the election. And I believe that we would win the election. So if you really want to help this campaign, make a donation. If you've already made a donation, I want to thank you. If you've made a donation, please consider making a second donation, or go out and get somebody else to make their first donation. But please help us raise the money that we need in order to have a strong finish so that we can win the election when the results are announced on July the 8th.
All right, this is another new follower on Twitter who actually just found out about you and will be casting their vote for you.
Hooray! Thank you. Thank you.
So this is a new follower, and their question is, what is your stance on reparations? Which we all know it, but why don't we repeat it for the new followers?
Right. Once again, I am the chairman of the People's Organization for Progress. The People's Organization for Progress was founded in 1982. The core demands of our political program, there were 10 core demands, and I think demand number 3 was the demand for reparations. So if we count from 1982, when the members first came together to form the People's Organization for Progress, we will see our 38th anniversary in August. So that means we can definitely document that I've been in favor of reparations for African Americans at least for 38 years. Now, those of you who know my history, you know that I was in the Black Liberation Movement, that I was very close to Amiri, the poet, playwright, activist Amiri Baraka. He had an organization in Newark. He had several organizations in Newark, and he supported the struggle for reparations. And as a very young student just out of high school, I learned about reparations through him. And of course, I've been supporting reparations ever since. My opponent, who had been in office for quite some time, finally put forward a bill in for reparations this summer. I'm glad that he put that bill in. That bill was the Senate companion bill to the House of Representatives bill, H.R. 40, which had been introduced by Congressman John Conyers since, I believe, 1987 was when Conyers first introduced H.R. 40. H.R. 40 would create a commission to study the issue of reparations and make recommendations to Congress on how that will take place. I will support, if elected, I will support H.R. 40 and I will support the Senate bill. But what I will do that will be different from the other US senators, I will actually introduce a bill for restitution and compensation to the descendants of those African people that were enslaved in this country for 265 years. From 1619 in the American colony, if we just count from the American colony, 1619 until 1865, in December of 1865, when the 13th Amendment was passed that abolished chattel slavery in the United States. So I support reparations, and I will introduce a bill for restitution and compensation.
All right, since we're approaching an hour, we'll take one last question. This question came in during the week on Facebook, and I think it's an important one to address. You support defunding the police and demilitarizing them, but do you support retraining police, or do you support starting forces from scratch and rebuilding the forces from the ground up to match the community around them?
That's a good question, and I think we have to take it on a district by district basis. Of course, immediately I support retraining the police. First of all, we should stop training them like they're the military. They're not the military. They're the police. That's the reason why we don't have the US military policing our streets. We have police forces, because the police forces to relate to residents in a different way than the Army would, or any other armed force part of the military, like the National Guard that came in and occupied Newark in 1967. So I support retraining. I support demilitarizing the police. And I support all the reforms that people have put forward. But most of all, I support those reforms that will, in fact, equalize the justice for the police and citizens. Right now, the citizens get one type of justice and police get another type. It can't be two types of justice in America. It has to be one type for everyone. So in some communities, like Camden, New Jersey, there was actually an opportunity. They did actually fire the entire Camden police force and reorganized it into the county police force. So when I was in Camden, marching with the people in Camden against police brutality last weekend, all the cars that I saw didn't say, the police cars didn't say City of Camden, they said County of Camden. So they did a total reorganization. So it depends. We would have to take it community by community. But the most important thing is that we must put in place laws that will deconstruct the bulwark of federal laws, state laws, local laws and ordinances, provisions in contract, and the blue wall of silence. All of those things operate in tandem. They work together to give the police a type of protection from prosecution that regular citizens do not have. So when the police, as in the case of Earl Faison, when they murdered Faison, they didn't even do a homicide investigation. The county didn't even investigate the murder. We had to call in the federal government. And the federal government convicted the police, not on murder. They murdered a man, but the federal government couldn't bring murder charges. All they could bring was civil rights charges and conspiracy. So we have to deconstruct all these laws that give the police a type of protection that the average citizen does not have. So when they think about doing something they shouldn't be doing, they'll think very hard before they act. Because do they want to work for 15 or 20 years and then lose their pension because they did something stupid? No, I don't think so.
Thank you so much, Nikki, for the questions. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. We had a great substantive conversation. We're going to turn it back over into the hands of Lawrence Hamm so he can give us our final remarks. But I do want to say that, listen, this is the time that we have to make change. This is the time that we have to reestablish and restart and correct the wrongs that have been made over the last 3 years. I'm reminded of the great quote, "We are the ones that we have been waiting for, and it's our time to actually make change." So please go to the website. We need people to volunteer. We need helpers. We need campaign workers. We need finances. We need the whole 9 yards. So please go to that website, www.hamforsenate.org, www.hamforsenate.org. Please go to that website now and connect with as many people as you can. Tell them about the campaign. Tell them about the great things that's going on. But most of all, tell them what a wonderful substantive candidate that we finally have for the state of New Jersey in the hands of Lawrence Hamm. Lawrence, can you give us our final words?
Last words. Come out to Justice Monday. This Monday, June 22nd, 4:00 p.m., Rodino Federal Building, 970 Broad Street in Newark, corner of Broad and Walnut Streets. Come out. We'll be there from 4:00 to 6:00 for our protest against police brutality. And then everybody, all out to Trenton on Tuesday, June the 30th. Meet 11 a.m. at the State House Annex for our protest, our March on Trenton to protest against police brutality. Tuesday, June 30th, 11 a.m., State House Annex, 131 West State Street in Trenton, New Jersey. I want all the people that have had marches and protests and rallies for George Floyd, for Breonna Taylor, for Ahmaud Arbery, all you folks come down to Trenton on Tuesday, June 30th, so that we can make our demands on state government and help bring about an end to police brutality. Thank you very much, and power to the people.